What did the bully do at your school that made you think, that's too far? Belted some kid with a chunk of wood, 2x4 for talking to his girl. Kid got a depressed skull fracture or some shit, bully went to jail. He shoved a black kid's head into a toilet filled with shit. Pissed a ton of people off. Racism charges were filed, but nothing ever came out of it. He was too popular and parents were too well known. It was fucked up. Same guy had a signature move of popping people's right eyes out after knocking them out. He eventually wrecked his truck doing 90 miles per hour on a little shitty-ass back road while drunk and fucked up on coke, caused his truck to flip several times, and died from it. Not going to be the one who says he kinda had it coming, but a group of kids liked to piss of this real nice teacher because they said he was creepy, so one day they played a prank where one of them pretended to hang themselves and he had a stroke because of it. I like annoying teachers and all, but even I was like, holy shit. We had an actual psychopath bully at my school. He was an odd-looking kid with black hair and bright blue eyes. He was popular because he looked attractive, but he was a complete freak. Once, he pinned down one of my friends in the classroom and drew a swastika on her forehead with a pencil. Why? Because she had been born in Germany to two British parents while they were on holiday. So to him, this made her German and obviously a Nazi. He'd alternate between flirting with girls and bullying them, and sexually assaulted a few. Why he was never expelled, I do not know. Once, he got caught by a teacher writing apples, 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 apples over and over again on a sheet of paper for no apparent reason. I'm autistic and I know about weird behavior, but even I found that creepy. In his adulthood he has been arrested for various crimes, I don't know what exactly, but car theft is one of them. Probably worse, considering his conduct towards girls in particular at school. He was one of the creepiest motherfuckers I've ever met. The weird stare with the half smile and those eyes. Fuck. I hope he's in jail now because he creeped me out big time. 5th grade. She mercilessly bullied the shortest, smallest kid in class every day. She called him midget and other things like that. I distinctly remember the day she shoved him to the ground outside of school. That was when I knew I had to stay away from her no matter what. About 5-ish years later, her and her boyfriend were involved in the murder of her mom and sister. They found her trying to run away to Mexico. Completely horrifying and heartbreaking situation. While I was in junior high, there was this guy in my grade. He was incredibly nice, super sweet to everyone, and never realized when people were making fun of him. His name was Brian and he had Down syndrome. One day these three kids decided to start picking on him. They started making fun of him. Brian never really realized when someone was being sarcastic or making fun of him, so he would just smile and try to talk to them and be the nice guy he was. These three kids decided to take it further and started pushing him. I told them they needed to fuck off. Their reaction was to push him to the ground and hold him there until he was crying and telling me to do something about it. Now I've always been a bigger guy, I was probably 6'0" and 200 pounds back in 7th grade. I also grew up as the youngest of 5 boys. Meaning I got the shit kicked out of me by my brothers in a daily basis. So I had some good knowledge on how to protect myself, but outside of with my brothers, had never had a fight before. I ended up breaking one of the kids' nose, one ended up with broken ribs, and the third just got a bloody lip. I still say they deserved to get beat much worse. After it was all said and done, the 3 of them were suspended for 3 days. I was suspended for 3 as well. But after my mom heard what happened and why I was fighting, I got a 3-day vacation from school and a new game for my GameCube. My mom always taught me right from wrong and was nothing but proud of me. They tied some kid's gym locker up with his t-shirt, but before they did they squirted mustard all over his clothes. I helped him get his locker back open. They weren't happy, but I was a varsity wrestler so they didn't mess with me. Not really the bully of my school, but when I was in HS, a girl posted her boyfriend's porn on Twitter and tagged his mom because she was mad that he made it, rightfully. He did it behind her back. The added salt in the wound was that he did 2 solo vids that got posted on the site's gay version, and she chose the video from the gay site to tag the mom in. Needless to say, his family and anyone who knew him saw his everything after he was publicly exposed and de-anonymized. This guy was also very homophobic in his personal life, so he got kicked out of the porn industry after his personal Twitter was posted on the comments for all of his videos, causing a huge uproar. His apology video is still on YouTube, and he still gets shit for it. This group of guys went to my middle and high school. They bullied me in 6th grade, and out of everyone I'd met until that point, I knew them to be the most likely to do something actually violent. 3 years ago, in 9th grade, a kid I had never met but who was also in the same grade and at the same school was beaten to death in an alleyway with 3 teenagers as suspects. I live in Florida, but in a nicer part that doesn't have as much Florida man type things happening too often. Anyways, my dad was the one who had initially told me about the murder because I hadn't and still don't pay attention to local news much. I thought back to the kids who bullied me way in the beginning of middle school, and I remember specifically listing their names and promising that they were at least a part of it. Sure enough, 2 of the 3 involved were those stupid ass bullies from way back when. The third was actually an old friend. He was a decent person, but his family wasn't, and overall he was an impressionable person surrounded by the wrong people. Edit. Jail time. Plenty of it. I was a pretty sheltered kid growing up. Didn't really know how to fit in, and with a name that seemed to rhyme with an us, bullying just kinda came with the territory. Kids tend to be pretty unforgiving, and once the whole school knows you as an us, your social life is basically over. I'd get picked on in all sorts of ways. Verbal, emotional, physical. My school bus driver even gave me a head start when getting off the bus sometimes, so I'd get a chance to run from bullies. I'd sometime make it, sometimes I'd make it a couple houses, then get jumped in front of someone's house. Had a dad that beat me so the bruises kinda all blended in together swimmingly. The that's too far moment a couple years after I tested out of HS sophomore year to get away from those issues. I started community college and got in shape and gained a level of confidence, given I was mostly around older people who didn't see my name and give me shit for it. One night I was visiting my parents who lived near my old HS. There was a park nearby that I used to play basketball at, and after having dinner, I decided to walk up the hill to the park and reminisce a bit. It was an entirely uphill walk to the top where there was a court and some jungle gyms. So to give reference, the park is pretty secluded and gated, unless you had a key or just scaled the wall to get in. So I jumped the wall, walking through, older, confident, looking back on my younger days hiding away in this park, when I see 2 silhouettes at the very top of the hill. I was pretty sure I recognized both of them as 2 guys that used to pick on me. I wasn't the same old and us. Having worked out and much more confident, I waved to them both. Lowering my voice a little to sound manlier, I called out their names. They both seemed to have jumped when they heard me and looked over for a second before there was a loud pop and I heard air as something whizzed past my ear. I vaguely remembered the 2 of them as being very angry, kinda sketchy dudes. It took me a second before I realized I was just shot at. I turned around and booked it, my heartbeat in my ears till I got out of the park and hid in an apartment complex, making sure they didn't come after me. In the moment, my dumbass was thinking, wow, I knew they didn't like me, but this is getting out of hand. It was only much later that I realized that park was the go-to place for drug deals and I'd stumbled into one. It probably wasn't because they didn't like me and just more that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time acting like a complete idiot. TLDR, was shot at. Thought they took bullying to the next level. Was actually just my sheltered ass walking into a drug deal. Some guy tried to light a girl's hair on fire. He didn't succeed, but she was ready to beat the shit out of him. I held her back. At this point I'm not sure that was the right choice. It's hard to say, I dunno where he is now, but he probably could have used a beating. My friend had finally grown her hair back after chemo. So yeah, that guy was a giant dick, and maybe I should have let her kick his ass. I thought he was good dude before that event, but yup. Way too far. He tried to stab a friend's eyes out and tried to stab a relative of mine with glass. Yet another beat the crap out of a friend with a group of like 20 of his own friends. Totally unrelated group chased a friend of mine with a knife trying to stab him. Had the kid with a learning disability read out me sofa king we ta did. Substitute teacher was in the room and did nothing, so I stood up to erase it off the board and got in trouble for being out of my seat. I went to a boarding school. Some kid got pinned down by 2 guys while another bounced his balls on his face. This kid got at Mr. Ball Bouncy by pissing into a water bottle and pouring it all over his room. Both were kicked out. I was severely bullied in grade school. I was basically tormented and tortured for 8 years. When I was about 5 they locked me in the bathroom and turned out the lights that were outside the bathroom and told me this ghost lady was going to come out of the mirror and kill me. Another time when the teacher left the room, this kid grabbed my glasses from my face and started tossing them around to all the other kids. They eventually broke, and I don't know why, but I told my dad I lost them, and he was very angry with me. We were also poor, so needless to say I was blind for a few weeks until we could afford to get new ones. I have a bunch more stories that crossed the line, but I will leave you with those for now. This guy dislodged a locker door and started smacking my friend's balls with it. This one may be kind of mild compared to others. But there was a freshman on our wrestling team who was a completely dweeb and got picked on a lot by this group of sophomore wrestlers, our 113, 120 and 138 wrestlers. Anyways, one day they decided it would be a good idea to pee on him in the showers after practice. That made me so mad. I talked to the coach next day and got to drill live matches, actually wrestling each other, with each of them on rotation for 10 practices straight. Maybe the most satisfying thing I've ever done. Kid they picked on qualified for state his senior year. Karma's a bitch. You want to know the real answer? Anything a bully does is that's too far. I wasn't told much of it, but someone I was friendly with was bullied pretty harshly by some people and committed suicide. He never told anyone about how he was bullied, but people slowly caught on to who caused it to happen. Still feel terrible that I didn't know what was going on with the person I was friendly with and wish I could have done something to save him. Tried to beat the shit out of the nicest guy in school. Nice guy was huge. Not fat, but big ahead of the rest of us. But he wouldn't fight back. Just kept getting hit on the way to his next class. He turned around once and we thought it was on, but then he calmed himself down, turned the other cheek and walked to class. I was amazed. So much class. 2 of my buddies and myself beat the shit out of the bully the next day. Told him never to fuck with big guy again. He never did. I wish I had the ability to turn the other cheek like that back then. Had to learn the hard way much later in life. Started picking on a severely handicapped girl. I beat the bloody hell out of him. She called the only black boy in school a little monkey. Her group of friends were instantly ostracized. She told the whole class that I was gay. And insulted me about it. My friends comforted me, all guys, and asked me if I was cheating on all of them. It doesn't exactly fit with the story, but this thread made me remember a funny incident where one of my friends at the time suddenly decided he was going to become a hardass and get all the respect and babes by picking on the weird kid. It was totally random because he was a nice, pretty quiet kid before that. But anyway, he walked up to the weird kid all Billy Badass and said, "That's my chair, what are you doing in my chair before class?" The weird kid just calmly sits there and quite rightly points out there's no assigned seating. So Billy Badass suddenly pushes him and tried to get him in a headlock. So the weird kid just bit him on the arm, really hard enough to break the skin and send him to the hospital for tetanus shots. This was back in the days when school administrators still were allowed to have some common sense, so the principal just called them both into the office, figured out what happened, and said to Billy Badass, "You got what you deserved," and said to the weird kid, "Don't bite anyone else, that is dangerous and very weird," and then made them shake on it, and that was that. The first and last day of my old junior high friend's decision to be a badass and get popular by picking on the weird kid. There was a toilet in the locker room that quit working. Someone used it anyways and it sat for a couple weeks. Kid filled someone's water bottle with it. Disgustingest thing ever. Some girl liked to start fights to increase her ego and status, so she picked on this one girl who was raped by her father for a large portion of her young childhood. She started saying, "I bet you liked it," and practically told the entire school and all this other nasty shit. Eventually the other girl got incredibly depressed and angry and pushed her. They fought, and the bully had a posse of equally rude guys teasing and filming it saying, "Dumb whore, stupid ass slut." The bully smashed her nose in and ripped out earrings. Stupid fights happen in middle school. But this was really fucked up and too far. Also, nothing happened to the bully or any of the kids involved. Luckily the victim was emotionally strong. But holy shit, I can't believe people like that exist. Really sucks. One bully at my school pushed a kid down the stairs. Where there were shards of glass at the bottom. Which he landed on. The bully was expelled, in anger management, probation, and juvie for a short time. The kid's okay. He has serious scars though. I know it's not nearly as bad as the stuff I've read in this thread, but I still wanted to share it. So just to start, I was bullied most of my life due to various reasons, but I think the biggest one was me being a male with long hair. I often got called a fucking gay emo trans Metallica shithead. Honestly, one of the rarest insults I've ever heard. First, it was just my classmates, then the whole school, and after that even the teachers started to get in because my grades and my general attitude towards other people got worse. I wonder why. After 3 years of this shit, I was almost at the breaking point. Fortunately, it was the last day of school for the year, so I wouldn't see these fuckers for some time and just be able to isolate myself in my room in true gothic fashion. Unfortunately, one of my worst bullies rode the same bus as me. I only remember standing there, reading a book while I was waiting for the bus. Suddenly she tried to get into an argument with me, but I stayed calm. She then proceeded to smack the book right out of my hands on the ground. I of course asked what the fuck was wrong with her, and she just started yelling at me and insulting me, and in the end she told that if me and just a literal piece shit were laying on the ground and burning, she'd get a fire extinguisher, save the piece of shit, and then beat me to death with the fire extinguisher, just let me burn to death. I know this doesn't sound like much, but for my 13-year-old psyche it was a pretty devastating blow. I started tearing up, and in the end my mum picked me up. When I arrived at home, I just laid in my bed, cried a little more, and then slept for 18 hours. After this incident I decided to switch school. The bullying didn't get better, though it just shifted from mental bullying, getting called a faggot etc. 250 times per day, to physical bullying, just getting beaten up on a weekly basis. P.S. To anybody who read this whole story, thanks for listening to my problems. Not really an aggressive bully, but one of the popular kids. There was an outcast kid in high school who committed suicide. He had a lot of issues, one of which was he was in the foster system and living in a group home. At school, was ignored, mocked, probably bullied. I only had one class with him, so didn't know much by the popular crowd. After he died, my English teacher was making an announcement that she would arrange to take anyone to the funeral who wanted to go. Group of popular kids in front of me start asking each other if they are going to go, because now they care about the kid. One of the guys says, I dunno, I might go just to get out of class. To be fair, everyone went silent and kinda gave him looks, and he did seem ashamed at what he said. I think he tried to mumble something about joking or not meaning it. But seriously, it stuck with me. Like, when he was alive, at the least you purposely ignored this kid's existence, at most bullied him. Now he's offed himself, and you want to use his funeral not to make any sort of amends, but to simply get out of class. Fucking piece of shit. Douch. Wanted to strangle him with his fucking puka shell necklace. In college, someone pulled a prank on a Jewish guy by putting a shaving cream swastika on his door. Uncalled for but not outrageous. His response to the girl he only suspected had done it was to print hundreds of copies he had of her naked playing strip poker all over the campus with the caption, "This girl is cheap and easy." It wasn't even her who did it. After he had done this, he was bragging how he had just gotten started. I finally stepped in and said he had already taken it too far as it is. And fortunately he stopped there. I'm no anti-Semite, and a swastika is over the line, but the swastika didn't actually harm anyone's reputation. I hope he looks back at this and feels bad. It's not as bad as the others on here, but I thought it was pretty bad. In my class, we had an autistic kid who would occasionally just start dancing out of nowhere. The first time he did it, a bunch of druggies in my class start to mock his dances. He was obviously upset, but what made him even more upset was that they were also just talking shit about him too, saying stuff like he's so fucking annoying, why's he in our class and why the fuck is he always doing this shit. They called him retarded and a lot of others like that. I definitely thought it was over the edge and totally disrespectful, and so did everybody else in the class. Threw exploding firecrackers into some random lady's baby carriage and severely injured the baby. I sat in front of Paul, who had a lazy eye. A kid sitting next to Paul named Raymond one day kept teasing Paul about his eye and telling him, "I'm going to make your other eye sag, motherfucker." I just couldn't let that shit go, so I turned to Raymond and told him, "Shut up, man, or I'm going to kick your ass after class." Raymond snickered and told me that he was looking forward to it. The immediate result was that Raymond didn't say shit after that. Now, my mom, who was a teacher, told me to never take shit from someone, but also to never throw the first punch. The bell rang, and I walked out of class ahead of Raymond expecting to be jumped from behind or punched in the back. He ended up punching me in the back of the head, must have fucking hurt his hand. I immediately turned around, hugged his knees, lifted him up and flipped him hard. The sound of his head hitting the concrete still gives me the willies. He started doing that knockout moan groan, and I jumped on his chest, pinning his arms with my knees. He came to pretty quickly. I held him by his hair with my left hand and cocked my right hand, and then I gave him a bloody nose. No more bullying after that, and eventually Raymond and I became friends. This was middle school. Raymond used to terrorize a lot of kids. Pretty much quit that day. Edit my late wife used to call me the avenging angel. Hilarious. There was a tiny 4 feet 11 white girl, let's call her M, who called a 5 feet 11, 200-pound black girl, let's call her L, N-er. Not kidding, at all. L was the nicest person, so everybody was like WTF. But M's parents donated a ton of money to the school. So when she was an asshole, the school let it slide way too often. L, being so nice, never gets super mad. Ever. Somehow M found the one way to enrage this girl. I have never seen someone beat another person's ass so well and so quickly. I'm talking 2 to 3 punches, 2 to 3 kicks. Literally smeared shit on this one autistic kid who bit the tip of his finger off after. A guy who used to bully me in 4th grade struck me with a glass bottle in my face, right in between my eyebrows. The bottle broke and injured me, and that kid got away with almost killing me. Our principal just said it's not our business. In about 2nd grade, I went to Catholic school, and around every Thursday, we went to church. We also had to kind of prepare for our first Holy Communion outside of school. At some point near the end of our preparation thing, we did a mock of the FHC, and me being a 2nd grader and an idiot, I thought that was our FHC. Fast forward a few weeks later, and it was Thursday church day, and what do? I do communion, and I eat the bread. Everyone else seemed to know that the mock FHC wasn't the real deal, so when I did it, everyone, including the teachers, was just sort of like, what the hell, dude? Why did you do that? I just sort of blew it off as them seeing it as a common mistake. The next day, I had to go to my religion class, where my teacher, the bully, completely freaked out on me. She insulted me, called me dumb, threatened to send me to the principal's office, repeatedly asked me why I took the bread, despite telling her the truth that it was an accident, started going on about how I was going to hell, and she got the whole class to get in on the fun as well. The whole class period just sort of went about with me being verbally abused by everyone in the class. Keep in mind that I was, like, 7, and I was just sort of speechless and severely embarrassed. That one experience still has me scarred to this day, and I still have social anxiety from it. Mrs. Minor, if you're out there and reading this, go fuck yourself. Beat up a mentally challenged kid because he came in our school. The kid was from a different school, he came after classes were out to hang out with his sister. Stole the wheelchair of a disabled girl. Now thing was, everyone liked this girl, so there was a cry for blood. They expelled him after threats were made against the administrators. Came up behind me at a drinking fountain and tried to set my hair on fire with a Bic lighter. Raped a kid. In the school bathroom. I was bullied for about 6 years in a row in my old school. I changed schools, and I get bullied in my new school. But I think it's too far that the group of people in my current school think it's funny and cool to call my Muslim best friends in school piece of shit Muslims.